So now to get on with our program, and we have a great lineup of speakers today. I want to introduce Connie Segreto. Connie is a remarkable person that I've gotten to know. She's a longtime marketing and strategy executive at Deloitte. But Connie also has a passion for children and for the disadvantaged. Connie started SAM Camp. SAM Camp stands for Science, Arts, and Math Camp for Children from first grade through 12th grade. And when she started that in 2008, since she started, there have been 2,000 children have gone through that program. Connie is also on the board of Lighthouse for Women. Lighthouse for Women provides shelter and services to some of the most abused and oppressed women in Chennai, India. Both SAM Camp and Lighthouse for Women have display tables that you may want to visit in the back. Connie is also the mom of 2 grown boys that are here today. She lives in San Jose, and the title of her talk is God is a Whisper Away. Please welcome Connie Segreto.
Thank you, Skip. I'm so grateful to be here to share with you from a very personal perspective what God has done in my life by His grace and mercy. I think most of us would agree that early on, experiences that we have at a young age have a deep and prevailing impact on who we are today and who we expect to be even in the future, especially if hurtful experiences have never been resolved. I appreciate your grace as I share some of the experiences that I have been through that have led me to acknowledge no matter the depth of the physical, emotional, or spiritual challenge, God is only a whisper away. Well, I grew up on what I call the wrong side of the tracks. Always had a home, food, clothing, not necessarily the clothing I would have liked, but in an area that was very much looked down upon. And we didn't really have opportunities that a lot of other families had. Even at the earliest age, I remember my response to that was to feel less than, inadequate, and like I just didn't measure up. Didn't matter the circumstance. I could come home with straight A's and often did. But somehow it wasn't good enough. Never a member of the in crowd or any crowd for that matter. But during that time, there was a very kind priest from our parish who reached out to our family. And he visited often. He played games with us. He took us to the movies, which my parents couldn't afford to do. And he even bought us a puppy. Unfortunately, he also molested me for several years. As I resisted his consistent attempts to touch me inappropriately, there were also emotional barbs. I remember one time, he pulled me aside to tell me that he loved me, he wanted to marry me, and that he would wait until I was 17 to do that. Now, for a little girl who knew that priests didn't marry and they had a sacred mission, this was very confusing for me. As I resisted and he persisted, he finally was moved out of the area into another parish in a different city. But he sent me a letter. And in this letter was a picture pulled out of a magazine of a beautiful woman. And in the context of this letter is all the amazing things about this woman, and she's your replacement. Now, just denigrating whatever value I might have had as a person, and having a devastating impact on me as I was just heading into young womanhood. Deep inside, I had a lot of anger, confusion, guilt, and I had a drive to prove that I had some value. I had a drive for recognition and acceptance. I was the first in my family to attend college. I was the first to earn a master's degree. I was the first to leave that small town to go to the big city. I was the first to climb that corporate ladder, all the while carrying inside of me an emptiness that nothing, no accomplishment could fill. I married, and as Skip said, I have 2 amazing sons that I am so very, very proud of. But after 22 years, the marriage ended in divorce. And success or failure, most times it takes 2 to make or break a marriage. Maybe some of you in this room have been through divorce, maybe more than once. Whatever the reason, maybe you couldn't connect or communicate, or deep-seated issues just never got resolved. Maybe you or your spouse worked 24/7 or drank too much or escaped into spending or pornography. Whatever the reason, the effect is harsh. Facing those dashed dreams while trying to piece together the family is overwhelming. And for me, the abandonment just seemed to unearth all the rejection and pain of the past and reinforce my worthlessness. I tried to hold up a strong front, but inside I was in a million pieces. I remember one day when my sons weren't home, I was just literally crumpled on the floor, trying to figure out what to do with all this stuff that was piling up and coming up and welling up inside of me. My friends and family had been very supportive, but they didn't have answers, and I wanted to be strong for my sons, but I was stuck. I looked up and I said, God, could you please put a song in my heart to replace all this confusion, all the guilt, all of the anger, the bitterness, the lies, the resentments that have just piled up and taken residence in my heart. I'm not really sure why I asked for a song. For all the piano and singing lessons I had gone through, you wouldn't have known I had taken a 1. But God, in his kindness, gave me a song, lyrics and melody. And he's continued to give me songs and poems over the years that remind me that he's my healer and he is Lord of my life. I think the big question is, where was God during all the offenses? Where was God during the violations, especially when I was a little girl? It may sound crazy to you, but I believe that God was right with me, holding me, weeping with me, and pointing me to the path of freedom. As you see, we all have a free will, and I'm sure many of the business people here in this room can look back at some great choices that you're really proud of. But I expect that there are some choices that you do look back on that you're not so proud of. And wherever we find ourselves, those good or bad, they have an impact not only on us, but on others around us. But God is always near, no matter where we find ourselves. When we turn to him, he's ready to answer. I believe that there are some wounds that only God can heal. That there are some holes in our heart that only God can fill. And that there are some challenges that only God can walk us through. And God walked me through my challenges, and he continues to walk me through those challenges. The exciting thing about this valley is there are so many things that we can achieve. The next promotion, the big client, the next disruption that's going to change the way we connect and communicate. It really is all so exciting, but it doesn't satisfy. That freedom from those mistakes and hurts and pains that we need, the peace that we seek, that unconditional love that everyone here needs, it can't be achieved, but it can be received from a God who loves us dearly and has a plan and a purpose for our lives, for today and for eternity. So where is that freedom that God was pointing me to? What happened with all that hurt and that guilt and the pain, and what good could have come out of what happened to me? Well, the most important and first thing is that I received a gift of forgiveness. Forgiveness for my own mistakes and poor choices. And then God put in my heart a gift of forgiveness for others. I was able to pray for that priest for years until he passed away 2 years ago. And my former husband remarried several years after the divorce, and I've always prayed for him and his wife to be blessed. Now, that is not something I could have conjured up out of that heart that was full of all that junk. God came in and put his heart in its place. And I have the opportunity, and have had over the years, to reach out, to touch, to comfort, to mentor other women who have been abused, and some of them horrifically abused. As Skip mentioned, I'm on the board for Lighthouse for Women, and it's a nonprofit organization that provides assistance to some of the most oppressed women and children in Chennai, India. Most of those women have been trafficked, and some of them trafficked by their own family members at the ages of like 11 and 12 years old. What a gift for me to go to Chennai, to visit them in jail, to hold every one of them, to weep with them, and to offer them some tiny bit of understanding, and offer them hope and light in the face of the darkness and despair that these women have lived in. And 8 years ago, I co-founded a science, arts, and math camp. We call it SAM Camp. I didn't know a thing about kids' camps. I didn't have the opportunity to go to camp, but God brought people around who knew all about it, and Milpitas Christian School, who has generously allowed us to use their campus for the past 7 years for free. With an all-volunteer staff and that, we've been able to have this camp at such a low fee you wouldn't believe it. But even then, if someone can't afford to go, they get a scholarship. No child is turned away for lack of funds. What a gift for me to be able to see kids coming to camp who typically couldn't afford to go to camp, and to offer them a safe, nurturing, hands-on, fun experience. But more than that, to introduce them to the God who created them, who loves them just the way they are, and who has planted in them a value and worth that no one can take away from them, and gifts and talents, and has given them a purpose and a plan for their lives. And professionally, I'm here to tell you that God gives peace and wisdom in all the business challenges that we face. Teams and colleagues and personalities, difficult decisions, leadership, where so many other lives are at stake. God is only a whisper away. He knows our thoughts, he knows our needs, and he cares. I'm going to end right now with just a poem that the Lord gave me as I prayed for a dear friend who was going through a difficult time. Maybe you've been through a difficult time or are going through one. Take a breath, take a moment, just close your eyes and listen. When dark clouds surround and tensions mount, when it seems you are all alone, when trouble sustains like heavy rain and your body is in pain, don't fear or despair. Remember this: God cares. He's a whisper away. He's light to the dark. He's a smile and a loving touch. He's the wisdom you need. He's the peace that you seek. And there's no one who loves you as much. Father God, I just pray for each person in this room that you touch them in a deep and personal and powerful way. First and foremost, that you let them know that you are, you exist, and you're only a whisper away. There's no measuring up required, no achieving, just humbly receiving your amazing grace, love, and mercy. Thank you, Lord. God bless you all. Thank you.